What's up, guys? Today we're talking about walls and the type of walls that we're going to come into contact with on this project. The first wall we're going to be looking at is a tilt wall. It's a concrete wall, very simple, very basic. And the other one is going to be a storefront. It's being washed out a little bit. It's a storefront. And that's not really a wall. It's more considered like glazing or its own entity, but it still keeps the outside from coming inside. So I consider that a wall. And then the other one is like you see behind me here, a standard steel framed, metal framed wall. And on this job, the client called us up and said, hey, we want y'all to put in a demising wall. And a demising wall is very important because it separates you from your neighbors. And what a lot of people don't realize is that they're very easy to build, but there's some key players in there that if you don't get them right, they can come back and get you. And some of it is just learned from experience. Some of it is just from being taught and just being a part of the trade for a while. We have a demising wall. We have a demising wall here, okay? My demising wall is gonna run from this pillar to this and into the wall. Now it's really easy to do. And on this project, we're also gonna be putting in a door. We're going to take out that panel. I don't know if it's going to be this panel or that panel, but we're going to take out one of those panels and we're going to put a door just like that. Focus. Just like that. So that's another video. But what we're doing today is I'm going to look at this wall. Now on this wall here, you can look up and see around the pipes. Now, I don't see any fire caulking that is being pushed out of that wall and around those penetrations. And this is very important because you have to have the right amount of fire rating on this wall. This sheetrock is rated for 30 minutes. Some sheetrock's rated for 45 minutes, some's for an hour, and then sometimes you double stack sheetrock. The other thing is the end caps. Let me tell you about that. So when you're meeting up to a window, that sun's bright. So when you're meeting up to a window mullion, which this is a window mullion. Here's your window mullion. You need an end cap. Here is your end cap. Your end cap is really important because it just gives you a finished off edge. But one of the problems that we run into, let's see if I can get you in here to see it. There it is a lot of people forget to put at least one layer, I like 2 layers, of double-sided tape in there. And so I can see right in through, and even if I don't push on it, look, you can still see light coming through. And what happens is your neighbors, it could be a restaurant, it could be a doctor's office, it could be a lawyer's office, it doesn't matter what it is, they will be sitting here talking, and a lot of times in offices they put the desk next to the windows. And so what happens is people pick up the phone and they're talking, or they're talking to a coworker, and you can hear right through that. So when you're building, especially in office spaces, it's really important that you put that double-sided tape there. It gives it a sound barrier and it just keeps everything together and sandwiched in there. Other than that, this wall is really built pretty decent. Studs are straight, track is shot down. I'm going to show you that. So what we do is you'll see these little red pins, and those are shots, anchors, and you put those in on your track. This is your track. There's your, I'm going to call it head track. I've always referred to it as head track. It's not true head track, but at least what we refer to as head track, but I'm going to call it head track. And then your studs snap in at the top and at the bottom. And then you just put 2 screws. You'll see a screw right there, you'll see one there. And you just screw in your 2 screws. And it's really important that these walls are built correctly because, one, you have fire code from neighbor to neighbor. You have the noise barrier, again, neighbor to neighbor. And it separates the 2 spaces. So it plays a real big part in everyday life. It's basically your fence between you and your neighbor. Now on this other wall, now see, this is a tilt wall, like I pointed out before, and you can see the holes where it's the hooks where the crane uses to bring it into place and tilt it up. And then it's secured by using the roof. They will weld these brackets, these joists, on, and they'll run over and they will hook up and weld on to these supports, and then the support up there. So this is a metal framed wall. This is a metal framing or red iron, and then it'll come over and then they weld this up, and then this connection, focus, this connection here, these connections here, keep this panel from just falling over. That and the fact that it's in a little ditch down here, concrete ditch. Now here we go. Here's another one. Now this is a tenant that's been built out for a while. We didn't do this build out, but look here. You have penetrations. There we go. You have penetrations here and here and here, and none of them are fire caulked. And you got to have that fire caulking in there to give you the correct fire coverage. The other thing is again, this wall is built pretty good. All your shots are in there. It's kind of hard to screw up a wall like this. This looks like 20 gauge stud. 20 gauge is the thickness of the stud, and typically when you see these imprinting on here like this, and you can just feel it and you can hear it, that's 20 gauge. And 20 gauge is fine. The architects like to call out 20 gauge. The wall we're building is actually larger. It's actually 18 gauge. But check this out. Look at this. They didn't finish framing out the wall. And what they probably did was they probably left this sheet of sheetrock off and didn't put the studs in there, and they left this sheet of sheetrock off so that they could move materials from this vacant space that we're in right now to the space that they were building. And a lot of people do that, but then at the end you have to make sure that you come in here and you hang this stud back up, get it nice and straight, and in this case you would have 4 studs there for the sheet of sheetrock, and they would have to come in here and put that stud in straight and screw it into the top and screw it in at the bottom, and then they could screw in the sheetrock. But they didn't do that there, and they just have a stud that's dangling in the wind. And that's probably not going to cause them many issues, but it's not up to code, and it's just poor workmanship. Same thing, look at these large gaps around the penetrations. Now, one of the things that they're probably betting on is that whoever gets this space, the tenant that takes this space, they're going to have to come in here and sheetrock that. And depending on the inspector might even make them clean that up. Now, this is in the county, so they're not as strict as in the city, but if I know at this building they do a third-party inspector, and I know him. I've worked with him for years, and he probably will make them come back and close that up. And so whoever has this space here, it's not right for them to have to come in here and fix somebody else's stuff when they're trying to do a build-up. Now, is it that much material? No, it's not. But you're starting to look at man hours. I mean, you're having to cut in and patch around all that penetration. You're probably looking at one day, I'd say one day, one person, plus a lift, at least a lift, if not a large ladder or a rolling platform. And then if he wants you to fire caulk, and if he wants you to fire caulk, you're talking probably a case, close to a case of fire caulking there. And then he still has to do that on his side once he puts in his insulation and fix that stud. And then it's just a mess. Our numbers are so tight. And they have to be. You have to be very competitive. And our numbers are so tight that things like that really start eating in to our overhead. Or not our overhead, our profit. And it's just little things like that that really gets us. And so I try to make sure that the guys, we take pride in our work. We take pride in our craftsmanship, our workmanship. Same thing. I noticed I was in here yesterday waiting on my material. Same thing here. See how this is all up here? You got your insulation, you got your studs. One of the guys came in here, cut this out, took the sheetrock, the insulation, threw it inside, and left it. And he was trying to run a wire up there. He's done running the wire. I watched him. But is he going to patch that? Probably not. And depending on, a lot of times in these spaces, they like to sheetrock that. And so again, that's little things. It's not a major thing. But again, it adds up. Same thing here. No fire caulking, nothing like that. And what makes this one worse is that other one bumped up to a wall. This is bumping up to a window mullion. So now this poor guy's gonna have to figure out how to get back there and fix that. Because I think on the other side you have like a cafe, and on this side is gonna be an eye clinic. So you're gonna have to sandwich that in somehow. And it's not that big of a deal, it's just a pain. So let me show you the materials we're working with today. So the customer requested to go up with a larger stud, and I'm going to show you the difference. Again, here's a 20 gauge stud. If I pull on it, you can hear it's got the little crinkles in it. Same thing on this side, it's got the little diamonds. And you got hole cuts out for your wires to run through, because this is how your wires are ran through here. And what they'll do is they'll run them through here, and they'll come in and then they'll put an anchor, a strap, and then you have your electrical box. And what's going to happen here is this probably is going to be TVs, because they're going to come in and anchor. This is your blocking for your TVs. And blocking for millwork is pretty much the same way. But the customer for us asked us to get these studs. Now these metal studs are 18 gauge, and as the number gets smaller, as you get closer to 0, the stud gets thicker. So higher the number is, thinner the metal, lower the number is, thicker the metal. And let's see if I can get a good shot of this. This stud is significantly larger. It's significantly thicker, and it's not put up on the wall, but when you flex it, when you pull on it, it will not make that pinging sound. The other thing is, notice there's no diamonds in there. And on the side, let's see if I can get a good picture here. On the side, there's no dimpling. So with those larger studs like that, this is gonna be a 6-inch wall, and it's gonna be, these studs are I think 18 foot, but my ceiling height here is 16 foot. 16 in the front, 15 in the back. So we'll see. And then here's the sheetrock. Now that's 60 studs. That's it, that's 60 studs. Over here we have sheetrock. I think I got 32 sheets here if I remember right. And this is 5/8 sheetrock, 4 foot by 10 foot. And we really like the 10 foot because when you're dealing with office buildings a lot of times and commercial, your ceilings are at 9 foot. And so what they'll do is we'll do 10 foot in a lot of these walls because that will get us to the 9 foot that we need, give us a little bit of overhang so that we can run our corner bead for our acoustical drop-in ceiling. And and then we can trim it if we need to trim it. But this is that. And then if you look on here, and I don't see it, sometimes they have the fire rating printed right on it. Generally, one sheet is 30 minutes. Being that it's 5/8, it's probably 45 minutes. I don't see the rating. It differs. And then I got mud. I got fire caulk. Look here, I got 2 boxes of fire caulk, and that's expensive. But if you're gonna do the job and you're gonna do the job right, you gotta have it. I got all my mud, all these boxes of mud. I got my tape, I got my screws. Those are sheetrock screws. These are framing screws, and I'll show you the difference. Let me get my knife out here. Okay. So, framing screws and sheetrock screws. Okay, so you get a big box of sheetrock screws, and sheetrock screws, here's one. So a sheetrock screw, come on, focus. That's a sheetrock screw. It's not very big. It's black. It's just like your residential. It's a Phillips head. It's just like your residential. These are 1.25 inches. And we get a big box of those. Now your framing screws will differ a little bit in commercial construction. Excuse me. It's Houston in the fall. My allergies are killing me. And it's not really even allergy season for us. And then here is a big box of framing screws. Now the framing screws are a lot smaller. You get a whole bunch more of them. These are 7/16. Focus. So much for autofocus. There we go. They're 7/16. Again, it's a Phillips head. It's chamfered around there, around the edge, so you don't have any. Let me put it on the sheetrock. Maybe it'll work then. There we go. It's chamfered around the side, and it's a self-tapper versus a sheetrock screw. Sheetrock screw is not self-tapping, as you can see right there. It's just got a sharp point, and it's not chamfered, because these you want to sink just below the sheetrock, just a hair. You don't want to rip the paper. A lot of people do, and it's not terrible if you do, but you don't want to. Self-tapping framing screw, and it's significantly shorter. We put them side by side, or actually let me stand them up. There you go. So you got 1.25 inches 7/16. And they do that because when you go in here to frame them up, here they are. You put that framing screw in there and it's smooth. And in that sheetrock, when you lay your sheetrock on here, it will dimple into the back of that sheetrock and it'll be a nice smooth surface. You don't have to worry about it picking up on itself. So guys, that's what basically it takes to build this is going to be a 73-foot demising wall. And, track. And here is my track. Now track comes in 10-foot pieces. Same thing, I got 18 gauge. And see, if I wiggle it, it doesn't make a noise. It's too thick to make that popping noise. 18 gauge does cost more, almost double. But it is, it's worth it. I think it's worth it. The other thing is, and they spec'd it out on this job, but that's what it takes to build a demising wall that's that length. You got 60 pieces of studs, you got 32 sheets of sheetrock, you got your mud, you got your screws. I just buy a box of each, and then you got your track. And again, it's 10-foot pieces, so if it's 70 foot, there you go, you do the math. And then I rent a scissor lift. A lot of people will try to use scaffolding, and it works. You need a couple of extra hands, but scaffolding just slows it down a little bit. Scissor lifts are great because what they'll do is they'll come in here and they'll use a piece of track, or they'll use a piece of stud and they'll put it right here. There's a way that they strap it on, and then what that does is it kind of gives them just a small support, a place to rest the sheetrock when they're putting up the top pieces, because these are the 10-foot pieces down here on the bottom, and then you'll see as it goes to the back it gets smaller. That is your cut ends. We call them cut pieces, cut ends, whatever. I mean, there's tons of lingo for different trades, but that's going to be your cut pieces. And other than that, that's it. Now, in this situation, what we're going to be doing is here we have a trench. Now the customer here wants a demising wall, but they don't want us to close up the trench. And I'll tell you how you do that. The way you do that is you will bring that demising wall. I'm sorry guys, it's getting dark. It's a little dark. You'll bring that demising wall right down this line, and what's going to happen is when we get over here, we'll secure a piece of track to the tilt wall, or not track, a stud to the tilt wall, and then secure the track at the bottom of that stud and at the last place on the slab. And then what happens is when the trade comes in here, the other trade, I don't know if it's going to be me or who it's going to be, but when they come in here, they'll backfill this, bring the frame for the concrete just past the wall, backfill underneath that wall, bringing the concrete up and kissing the bottom of the stud, and then once it dries, they'll have to shoot some pins in there. I don't like doing that, but that's how the customer wanted to do this one. So that's what we're doing. Other than that, that's it. We're going to start taping off, tape measuring all this, getting our lengths and our measurements, and start popping lines. And the guys, they're due here in a few minutes. It's about 8 o'clock. They're going to be here any minute. And we'll start popping lines. They're going to start laying track. And we'll see. We got 4 days to do this job, to finish this job out. So we'll see what happens. See how quickly we can get it done. I think we can get it done before 4 days. We'll just have to see. So let's see. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments, leave them, drop them. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. We're new at this, and we are going to try to start taking y'all around on these job sites, on these builds, and we're going to talk about materials. We're going to talk about how to pick a contractor, what to look for in a contractor, and picking your material, because a lot of times y'all are trying to pick some material, some paint. There's so many different types of paint out there. You got Benjamin Moore, you got Sherwin-Williams, you got Behr, you got Olympic. What's the difference? And why are the costs so different? So those are things that we're going to be talking about and bringing to you. So if there's anything that y'all want to see, if y'all have any questions, leave them. We'll answer them, and we'll make a video, and we'll get your answer, and we'll get back to y'all on all of that. So we appreciate you watching. Until next time.